Welcome back, class 7. I hope you are doing great. Today we will be starting with chapter 3 of geography. Last week sir has done with chapter 3 of history. We have also discussed about it. So today a new chapter from geography and a quite relevant one. Now in chapter 2 you have seen that we were talking about the earth's interior, which I told you is a very of utmost important. Based on that notion, based on that knowledge, you will be reading the next consecutive chapters. So the chapters that we are going to discuss today is about our changing earth. So why this why the name of the chapter is Our Changing Earth? Because earth is constantly being modified inside and most importantly outside. Okay, so our changing earth means the earth which was around 100 years back has completely changed after 100 years. Okay, so we have to see how these changes occur. Okay, now if we want to look deep into this chapter, we have to remember that while reading the different layers of the earth's interior, we have seen that we have three different layers. The crust, where we grow the crops because of the soil layer on top. Secondly, we have the mantle, and thirdly we have the core, which is divided into two parts, the inner core and the outer core. Now I also told you about the LVZ zone, which is also known as the upper mantle. The upper part of the mantle, which I told you, is neither solid nor liquid, and it is made up of semi-solid matter, which is also known as viscous, and that particular zone is known as asthenosphere. All right, now on top we have the crust, which is also a part of the lithosphere. Okay, now today we will discuss a little more about lithosphere. The lithosphere is broken into a small number of plates known as the lithospheric plates. So the first and foremost thing that we have learned about lithosphere is it is not a single plate but a amalgamation or assemble of few different plates, which are also called as lithospheric plates. Okay, and you will also be surprised to know that they move around very slowly, just a few million millimeters each year. So they move, and this movement is quite slow. Okay, but they are not static, they are moving. This is because of the movement of the molten magma inside the earth. If you remember, I told you when we were discussing mantle, I told you that the upper mantle is made up of viscous material, and the convection currents generate within this particular zone. So driven by this current, driven by this force, the plates of the lithosphere move. Okay, they are not static. The forces which act at the interior of the earth are known as the endogenic forces, and which act from outside on the surface of the earth are called the exogenic forces. Okay. Before moving into this, I want to tell you that the movement of these plates causes changes on the surface of the earth. Of course, if someone moves, it has to lead to some consequences, isn't it? So these movement actually controls the different movement that goes inside and outside of the earth's surface. Now you have a table where you can see the earth movement has been divided into two portions, the exogenic and the endogenic. So among the endogenic forces we have the two subdivisions. Okay, one is the sudden forces and the other one is the diastrophic forces. Sudden forces, we have the earthquake, volcano, landslide, because they come suddenly. It is not at all, it cannot be predicted. And among the diastrophic forces, we have the building mountain building, or we also call it orogeny. Okay, now exogenic forces is erosional and depositional. Exogenic means what happens on the earth's surface. Okay, so erosional and depositional. Naturally, erosion will happen because there are erosional agents, water, air, the tidal waves, tidal current, all are the natural agents of erosion. Most importantly, water, air, the tidal currents, the glacier, all are the erosional agents. So sea, wind, sea wave and the glacier, these four actually, they erode the surface of the earth and also at the same time deposits. So whatever they erode, they deposit at some point of time or at some place. So this is how the entire earth moves on. This is how the system keeps a balance in itself. All right. Now, endogenic forces sometimes produce sudden movements and the outer surface produce slow movement. Such a movement like earthquake and volcano cause mass destruction over a surface of area. Of course, we have learned a lot about the different earthquakes happening at different point of time in different cities, places and countries. So they are sudden, they cannot be predicted. So mainly the endogenic forces encompasses the natural phenomena of earthquake and also volcanism. You have a picture of a volcano in the figure 3.2. This diagram is important along with the diagram down, which shows you the origin of an earthquake. So all these diagrams you need to draw in your copy, children. Okay, so all these diagrams are important in geography, so please do practice drawing them. So what is a volcano? A volcano is a vent in the earth's crust through which molten material erupts suddenly. All right. So the molten material, when we were doing the core, okay, so you have seen that the inner core is in a solid state but the outer core is in a liquid state. Okay, so there lies the magma chamber, so from there, whenever there is a crack or crevices on the earth's surface, the magma comes out naturally, so with a tremendous force. All right, so this the structure which actually vents out the molten magma onto the surface is called a volcano. Similarly, when the lithospheric plates move, the surface of the earth also surface of the earth also vibrates. Of course, it will vibrate if the lithospheric plates move and they suddenly strike with each other. Then a vibration is produced. If you get obstructed by something, or few people are jostling with each other, then they has to come against each other, and there will be a certain vibration, and these vibrations are called the earthquake. The place in the crust where the movement start is called the focus, and the place on the surface of the earth just above the focus is called the epicenter. So the focus remains below the earth's surface, and on the earth's surface the point just vertically above the focus will be your epicenter. Please remember. So greatest damage is usually closest to the epicenter, and the strength of the earthquake decreases away from it. So it's very natural, where you have the origin or where you have the point on the earth's surface, the destruction will be maximum near to it, and as you go far away, the destruction will be less. If there is an earthquake in Assam, of course the places around Assam will be majorly devastated, and West Bengal, Bihar and Sikkim and Bhutan and others will be a little less suffered. Okay, so it is like that. Although earthquakes cannot be predicted, the impact can certainly be minimized if we are prepared from beforehand. So some common earthquake predicted methods adopted locally by people include, what are they? Studying animal behavior. Fish in the ponds get agitated. Then we have the snakes come to the surface. So all these are their response, or the nature's response to a certain calamity. They are the closest to the nature. Humans are not very close to nature. Okay, human beings have their several other activities, so they cannot be so close to the nature. But the plants, the animals, they are the closest to the nature. They get to know when something wrong really happens. All right, so by studying their behavior, we can actually understand or predict what is going to happen. Okay, Now we are straight coming to the major landforms. So as I just told you that there are several erosional agents which work upon the earth's surface. On the earth's surface they erode and they deposit. So in this way, first we are having the work of a river. Okay, now the landscape is being continuously worn away by two processes. What are the two processes? Weathering and erosion. What is weathering? It is the breaking up of the rocks of the earth's surface. Erosion is wearing away of the landscape by different agents like water, wind and ice. The eroded material is carried away by or transported by water, wind, etc., and eventually deposited. This process of erosion and deposition create different landforms on the surface of the earth. So the major two processes by which the earth's surface actually do their work is firstly by weathering, secondly by erosion. What is weathering? Breaking up of the rock surface, easily to be understood. When a rock or a big boulder gets broken up into several small pieces or several small boulders due to chemical and mechanical processes, then this process is known as weathering. And when due to the natural forces, when the earth's surface is getting constantly eroded and scrapped or abraded by the different agents, they are called erosion. Now reading that, first we have the work of a river. We all know that river is a natural erosive agent. It originates from a mountain and comes down to the plains through a valley and a plateau region sometimes. So the running water in the river erodes the landscape. It has to, because water is of tremendous potentiality. Okay, that is why we can generate hydroelectricity from it, isn't it? So it has tremendous force, it generates tremendous current. So we trap the river water through different dams and other processes to generate hydroelectricity. So that when the river water tumbles or sleep ages over very hard rock or down a steep valley sides and forms a waterfall. So when suppose it is moving steadily and smoothly but with great force, but suddenly it has a steep slope to encounter, and when it is suddenly jumping from a great height. Okay, Niagara Falls, Victoria Falls, Joke Falls, Angel Waterfall, all are, please go through the photos from YouTube, photos from Google. You will get to see that these beautiful waterfalls are formed in the similar way. All right, so when a water jumps suddenly from a great height to a lower height, the water jumps off to form a waterfall. So that is the first feature formed by a river. Secondly, as the water enters the plain region, it twists and turns, forming large bends known as meander. So when it enters the plain, it is entering the plain means the erosive work is done. Water, when it is coming down from the mountain, it basically erodes because it is of great enthusiasm. When it is entering the plateau region, which is of a little less height, it will carry whatever it has whatever it has eroded till now, it will start carrying them. And as soon as it enters the plain region, the flow of the river becomes quite slow. It moves very slowly and it will deposit its material on its way. All right, so when it does so, it starts moving from here and there, and it will take bends, which is known as meander. Due to the continuous erosion and deposition along the side of the meander, the end of the meander loop becomes closer and closer, and in due course it will get cut off from the main river, and thus will form a cut-off lake, which is also called the Oxbow Lake. So the Oxbow Lake is a very common feature which is formed mainly from a meander. And how, when the meander has too many bends, then at certain point of time it will get cut off from the main river and it will stand as a stagnant one. So it's a separate feature. So after meander comes the Oxbow Lake. It just look like a horseshoe or the oxbow, so that is why it's called the Oxbow Lake. At this time, or at times, the river overflows its bank. Tides also leads to the flooding of the neighboring areas. As it floods, the deposit layers of the fine soil, silt and clay gets deposited along its bank, okay, and thus it leads to the fertile flat plain. In the flat plain region, many people prefer to stay because it is made up of alluvial soil, which is very fertile for growing crops. All right, so the flood plains are thickly populated in India, which is actually formed by after the river has flooded its bank and all the materials have been deposited on both its way. The raised banks are called the levees. As the river approaches the sea, the speed of the flowing water decreases. So the speed of the flowing water will decrease as it will approach the sea naturally, and the river begins to break up into a large number of streams called distributary. So when it will about to reach its the mouth or the sea, then it gets distributed into several branches which are called tributaries. The river becomes so slow that it begins to deposit its load. Each distributary forms its own mouth. The collection of sediments from all the mouth forms a delta. So when these distributaries will also move towards the sea, they will form their own, they will fall at different time into the sea, and these all the distributaries, when they will fall along with the main river to the mouth of the sea, they will form a delta. All right, you all know that in maths you write delta, the shape, it is just like that shape, and Ganga Brahmaputra delta is the largest delta in the world. Okay, we have different other deltas, okay, Birdsfoot delta, we have other kinds of delta, but Ganga Brahmaputra, these two rivers have formed this delta near Sundarban, which has been formed by the main river and its distributaries after depositing so many loads together on the mouth of a river. Okay children, so we will stop here today. I'll let you grasp this till here. Next Friday we will again carry on with some other agent of erosion. Till then I want you to complete reading and also to refer to the video. All right, till then, take care.